Hey, welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be going over my first experience with Flesh and Blood Draft. Now this was with Tales of Aria, and not spoil it too much, but it was a good time. Alright, so quick recap of how the draft works in Flesh and Blood. You get 3 packs to put in front of you, and everyone else around you in your pod has 3 as well. In my pod there are 6 people. Then you open up the pack, toss the token in the middle, kind of the community pool, take 1 card out of it, and then pass it to your left. This continues around till that whole pack's done. Then you open the second, pass to the right, repeat, now you pass to the left again. Pretty simple, right? What's neat is you have a little bit of control over kind of what cards you're going to grab, and that's part of the strategy. I'll get into kind of what I think I did good and what I didn't do so good in. So my first pack I opened up had the Rosetta Thorn, and it was a Briar pack, so I kind of was like, maybe. And I had a Red Sigil of Suffering, so I kind of made the decision to go towards Briar pretty quickly in that first pack. Even though going into it, I was thinking I was going to run Lexi, as I had a little bit more experience there. And as the packs went around, kept getting a few good Briar cards. I went with the equipment as much as I could first, then moved on to more of the class-specific cards. And as it went around, more Lexi cards seemed to be getting left over, so I kind of figured, oh great, a lot of people are going for Oldhim and Briar. Then when we went open, we went back to the right, kind of the same thing happened. And when it was all said and done, what ended up happening was 2 people went with Lexi out of the 6, 2 went with Oldhim, and 2 went with Briar. Unfortunately for me, that Briar player was to my right. So guess what? 2 of the 3 times they were passing to the left, he was grabbing the cards. So you don't really know. That's kind of the mix about draft. The one mistake I kind of made in there though was I waited till the 3rd pack to start grabbing my Earth and Lightning cards so I could do fusion. As the other packs I was focusing more on the equipment and the attack action cards. So that hurt me a little bit, although I did stay focused and get a good mix of the different colors. With the hindsight as I should have put like 1 or 2 more blues in there. So my first game, which hopefully you'll be able to see the video here, I'll link it as soon as I have it posted. You can watch the first game. I faced off against Ben. From my understanding, this was kind of one of his first outing events. It's really my only second event going out, first armory event really. But he came with a friend and they've been playing for a little bit at home. He was at my pod and he went with Lexi. I was feeling kind of good in this match. It started off pretty strong. Within the first couple turns, I had him down 9 life. I just got a great string of cards between like a Singeing Steel Blade, I think it was a Rites of Lightning, and then I was able to get the Rosetta Thorn swinging, so I just did a lot of damage. And I was able to pick up the Sutcliffe's boots, so I was able to get that go again, to get that Rosetta Thorn out there off the Singeing Steel Blade. So, great combo, I was feeling really good. Well, unfortunately for me, he started drawing into like, I don't know, his 10 overflexes. I mean, I think there was only 5 or 6 that actually got played, but just felt like so many turn after turn. And part of my problem is, being a little bit more inexperienced, I got bricked up in my hand. I ended up stashing an Earthlore Surge, which was a +5, great, but it cost 2. And then I had a couple other cards in my hand. I was like, oh, I'm going to do a huge turn. I'm just going to swing for big. And I just got stuck in it. I just couldn't quite get it. In my hand, had I had like one of my yellows been a blue, I maybe could have pulled it off, taken some damage, but instead I kind of blocked with some cards, and I just didn't cycle them out. I should have blocked for more damage. That was kind of my lesson learned. So for a few turns, I just wasn't cycling cards in my hand, which was an error. So a little bit more back and forth. He ends up taking the win, taking me down with a dominated overflex, just popped me. Not much I can do against that. So unfortunately, I took the loss in that one. Congrats to Ben, though. It was a hard-fought game, and he fought back. Then next up, I ran into his friend, Jess, who was coincidentally also playing Lexi. However, in this one, there wasn't nearly as many overflexes, just a bunch of lightning presses, which may have been worse because, hey, they're an instant and you could lightning fuse with them. Although I do have to say, I'm sorry, I kind of cheated in this one. I was using the Code of Frost, and guess what? That's an ice equipment. I wasn't paying attention with everything going on. Didn't matter in the first game because I took the loss, but the second game I did end up winning. I'm not sure if that extra Frostbite token really mattered on the turns, as in my back half of the deck, kind of cracked a joke like, oh, where's all your arcane damage? And then like the next 5 turns it was just arcane damage, more arcane damage, just to the point where it was just too much to overcome, I think. But she did, again, put up a great fight. It was a fantastic game, a lot of back and forth. So I'm really hoping that 1 turn of Frostbite, when I go back and watch it, again, I'll link it up here when I have it, didn't cost the game. Then my 3rd game was against the son of my good friend and co-host of the Spellstorm Miniatures podcast, Oz, and he was playing Oldhim. And the thing is, I know he's building a Briar deck, and so he knew how to play better than I did, I'm sure. But he was having a little bit of a rough night. I don't think Oldhim was quite his style, maybe. But at least he called me out on the Code of Frost really quick, so chucked that one. But again, after a lot of back and forth, I was drawing in some good cards. I was able to block out some of his big ones, especially with like a Sigil of Suffering and a card from hand that just helped stop the big dominate turns, that I was able to absorb enough that I just kept swinging back on him until he was eventually at 2 life. Then I knew I kind of had him, because in my hand I had like a Bramble Spark and a Singeing Steel Blade, so it really didn't matter. I could take whatever damage he really threw at me as long as I survived, and then I played those. And he had no real way to block that plus my attacks, and it just ended up with the game. Took the damage, put him down to 0, and I get my second win of the night. So, pretty good night. Went 2-1 with a lot of lessons. That's the hard part when you kind of jump in and learn about a new hero. All of a sudden you're like, oh wait, how does this play out, and not breaking up your hand like that. Overall, walked away with some alright cards. I ended up leaving with no Majestics, but some nice foils, a few rares, and just a good time. Along with a foil Weave Lightning. Like I said, in this one I learned to earn the draft. My tip would be go for the equipment, then some of the generics, so that you can really go into any hero. But if you kind of have the idea of your Earth, Lightning, or Ice, that way you can stack those up beforehand and then snag a lot of those attack actions afterwards to make sure you get your fuses. Then read your cards to make sure you don't include anything that doesn't belong there. And then finally, with any game, I think, is not bricking up your hand. Kind of sticking a giant card in Arsenal and then having to block out. It didn't work for me, at least. Probably would have been better off getting rid of those cards somehow, just even small attacks, and then moving on with whatever else I could pull. So thanks for checking this out. Be sure to check out those game videos. And do me a favor, like and subscribe. It does a huge deal to get this out to other people if you're enjoying the content. And may those polls be in your favor.